He is online and he's got his camera on. So if you want to come on camera, then I'm going to hand over to the legend. Thanks so much, Mike, for coming on to the show. I love your website, so I'll make sure we post it in and we get some people to download your book, which is just being shared.
All right,
Okay,
great.
so let me introduce Mike now. Mike is an incorporated 5,000 software entrepreneur from California who fell in love and married a lovely British girl, now based in London. He runs his own companies and non-profit work. He's also professionally mentoring leaders, primarily in the technology field, of course, and shares his journey on stage at conferences. So we're going to hear a bit more of that today. Michael, I hope you're online, and I'm hoping to see you any moment. Over to you.
Yes, I'm here. Can you see me?
Not yet.
I can see you. I think it's just Paul who's having some technical challenges. First time he's used a Mac in 20 years, apparently. The last time it was the ones that were black and white and gave out radiation poisoning. So, Michael, yeah. I've made you presenter, so you should be able to share your screen. So if you go to where it says show screen, you should be able to select and share your local one. Or if you've not got slides and you want to go freestyle, then we'll just let you kick off.
I know this might freak everybody out, but I'm going to try doing this without PowerPoint. I know that's illegal sometimes nowadays, but to me, I spend so much time on Zoom and GoToMeeting and everything. I figured, let's just have a bit of a conversation. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about my journey of leadership. I'm going to talk about leadership now. I just came out with a book at the end of last year, and I just chatted something to the organizer. So hopefully you can put the links in so everybody can see them. And what the links are is for the book and for a group and for my LinkedIn. But what I wanted to do is talk about, again, my leadership journey and about leadership now specifically, because obviously in the last 12, 13, 14 months, a lot of leaders have been through more change than they have in their entire career. And I have some things to help out leaders in that. And then I really want to take some questions. So as you're listening, if you are a leader, aspiring leader, existing leader, you're dealing with work from home, virtual, remote teams, that's specifically what my last book was for. But anyway, I'm here to answer any questions. So get your questions ready, pop them in there. Whoever's moderating this, feel free to stop me as we're going through to ask the questions. And maybe we even have a little fun along the way. So that's all good. So first of all, my name is R. Michael Anderson. You can call me Michael or Mike, like Paul did. Believe it or not, this is not a Manchester accent. I'm not from the north of England. I'm American. I'm a Yank. I do live down here in the UK. I live in Surrey, in Hazelmere by Guildford. I met an amazing English woman a couple years ago, and now I live over here. Last place I lived for a long time was San Diego, and she told me it actually doesn't rain that much over here. And then I got over here. I don't know if that was a little bit of a sales pitch, but she's worth it. It's good. I like living over here. I grew up in a town called Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is out by New York. And actually, I say it's a little bit like Liverpool because it's a bit of a blue-collar town. We're a steel town over in Pittsburgh, and I know Liverpool is a bit of a blue-collar town. It rains a lot in Pittsburgh, just like in Liverpool. And we got a really good football team, the Pittsburgh Steelers, but it's American football. We call it the real football over there. Just joking. I know I like getting a rise out of the UK people around that, but anyway, I grew up in Pittsburgh, and I was a real nerd growing up. I'm 50 years old now, so that'll take you back to probably around the 80s and the early 90s. When I was growing up, getting into high school, and back then, for example, when I was going through high school, when I was 15, 16, 17 years old, we used to build our own PCs, and my idea of a fun Friday or Saturday night was getting together with my buddies. We'd go out to the PC store to get the newest video card or upgrade our RAM and play the newest video games, PC games back then. And that's what we did for a fun Friday or Saturday night when I was growing up. So needless to say, I wasn't having a lot of sex back then, pretty bare dating life back then. And so, that was good. I got that, I graduated from university, and I got a job in IT, but I was the guy, if your printer broke, you had to call down to IT, and then somebody had to run up and crawl underneath the desk and see if all your cables are connected and everything like that, and fix your printer, I was the guy they called. And I know you can't see it, but I'm about 6'8", 2.03 meters. And I hated that job, not just because they made me crawl under desks, because at 6'8", that was a really ugly scene, but because, you know, I was working a ton of hours, no real chance of advancement, not being paid very much. And so here I am in Pittsburgh. And I had a cousin that lived in San Diego, California. And if you know California, that's on the Southern California where all the beaches are, and it's really, really nice all the time. And he called me up and he said, "Hey, Mike, what's going on?" And we grew up a little bit together in the beginning part of our lives. And before he moved out there, his family moved out there. And he said, "What's going on?" I said, "Yeah, you know, things are going okay. You know, I got this sort of crappy job." And he said, "Mike, if you're going to have a crappy job, why not have a crappy job in California?" And I'm like, there's a lot of logic to that. So I packed up all my stuff, drove for 5 days across the United States, which was amazing. And then I got to San Diego, and that got me started in California. And I got started in ERP software. So if anybody knows what Microsoft Dynamics and SAP are, those are my background. You know, and I was very technical back then. I really picked programming up pretty naturally. And I started with a small company, but it was such a small company that I had to do marketing and sales and operations. And it was great because it really taught me a lot about business. And then a larger company purchased us, and they moved me from into the UK and then Denmark. And, you know, this is as I'm getting older in my 20s and my 30s, and I'm climbing the corporate ladder. Then I moved over to Singapore and I ran Southeast Asia for another international software company. Then I moved back to California, and then I started my first software company. And we had some success early. And again, I'm a pretty good technical person and a pretty good business person, a pretty good manager, and there was a gap in the marketplace. And so what happened is we started to have some success fairly quickly. And so, you know, we're doing a couple $1 million in just about a year and a half. All of a sudden I have a staff, I have an office, I have bankers, I have everything else. And then I realized that I wasn't a good leader. Again, I'm smart, I'm hardworking, I'm a good manager, you know, but there's this thing called leadership that I wasn't really getting, and I wasn't giving to my staff. And when I say that, it's like, you know, I started to have a real team. They started to look for me for something more than just management. Because back then, what I thought leadership was just getting a bunch of tasks and to-dos in, giving them out to everybody. And if they didn't get them done as fast or as well as I thought, I would just get frustrated. And you know, so when I first hired people, I hired a lot of my friends from the industry because I was in the industry a long time, and they started saying, "Michael, you know, we don't got a great culture here." And I'm like, "Culture? We're all programmers. You know, we should all have great culture. I understand what you're going through." And they're like, "No, that's not what makes a culture." And we started to lose clients, and people started to quit. And in concept, I guess, in a way, I knew what culture was and I knew what leadership was. I just didn't really know how to make that work for myself. I mean, you know, I was a bit insecure, I was a bit introverted, I didn't know how to hold people accountable. That was really, really uncomfortable for me, to hold people accountable. Like when people weren't showing up and doing what they were supposed to, how was I supposed to react? How was I supposed to get the best out of them? You know, I was really at a loss for what I call leadership, not just managing things, but really leading people, motivating, inspiring, empowering people, coaching people. And that caused a lot of issues for me. It caused a lot of issues, obviously, in the business sense, but also mentally and emotionally. Because, you know, I was running a couple $1 million company, and I felt like a fraud. I felt like an imposter. And I had a lot of negative self-talk, like, "Oh my gosh, I don't really know what I'm doing. I hope nobody figures that out, because then I'll be outed, and then people lose faith in me. I have so much responsibility. I was carrying that big responsibility on my back, and it was really, really difficult for me. And I said, you know what? To reach my personal and professional goals, I really got to figure out this leadership thing. So I did. I'm a good doer, and that's what I set my sights on, is doing that, learning that. And I'll tell you, to be honest, there's a much more dramatic story about this whole thing with substance abuse. I was going through a divorce at the time. I had a business partner, somebody who I brought in to run part of the business, assault me. We got in this fight, and he actually hit me in the middle of our office on a Wednesday. There was restraining orders, there was lawsuits, but I don't got time for all this. We only have half an hour. And so And Jonathan, I see 2 monitors up here. It's really freaking me out, man. Shut your monitor off if that's all right.
Yeah, sorry about that. If you just want to minimize me, there's a few people who can't see the live stream. So if you just hide me and then you continue, I will disappear. So everyone else can see you moving.
Cover it up. I have no idea how to do that. But anyway, yeah, so my leadership journey had some really low lows. And so I I've had some really low lows, but we don't have time for that. We got a short time here. I want to make sure you leave with some value, just instead of just getting my background. But if you really want to know all that, you either got to watch the Netflix special, the dramatic Netflix special. Right? I got those things on YouTube, so you can see my story in more detail. But I'm like, look, I got to figure this leadership thing out. So I got, I read books, I took courses, I got coaches. I took trainings, but I also ended up earning a very unique master's degree in spiritual psychology of all things. And I did that to learn as a leader, but also to learn more about myself. And in that, when I say spiritual psychology, it has nothing to do with religion. We learned 8 different psychoanalysis techniques just from a place of compassion. It's a very compassionate view of psychology. And it really helped me in my personal life. But as I learned these things, these psychological principles, and I started applying them to my businesses really took off. We were listed on the Inc. 5000 list a couple of years in a row. We were voted the #1 best place to work, which I'm real proud about. And I was voted Social Entrepreneur of the Year because we were giving back to the community. And that was on the outside, but in the inside, I was finally having fun being a leader because we were creating a great culture. People were growing as people, and we were succeeding. We were creating great connections to our clients and adding so much value. We're giving back to the community. And I think that's what we all want as leaders. But the thing is, often we don't know how to get there. And after having some success there, actually at one point I owned 3 software companies. Some other business owners in California started saying, hey, Mike, we saw the change in you and turning into a leader, and we saw what your companies have done. So can you help me and can you help us out? And I started doing that, and I really enjoyed that. And after 22 years in accounting software, I'm thinking I might want to be doing something new. And I know what you're thinking. You're like, oh my gosh, when you take accounting and you take software, like the 2 most sexiest things in the world, when do you really put them together? Wow, that's amazing. I'm like, yeah, I was a bit of a rock star in accounting software, but no. In all seriousness, I enjoyed my accounting software career, but it was time for something new. And so, I sold 2 out of my 3 companies. And what I do now is I teach leaders, especially technology leaders, and I teach them the mindset of leadership because I have the psychology background, but I also have a neuroscience certificate, and so I really enjoy what makes me tick and what it makes other people tick, and I find that leadership can be such a difficult endeavor. And the thing is, when we don't get the support or training we need, which leaders almost never do, it's very hard on themselves. They're very hard on themselves. And look, as technical people, we're often very analytical. And what makes us great technical people often is not what we need as leaders. Because, as a great technical people, sometimes we're a bit introverted, we're analytical, we outwork the problem. But then you get into leadership, and it's like you have to manage all these different priorities, all these different personalities. You need emotional intelligence, you need communication. And so I really teach people. So if you're out there and you're like, hey, I was pretty successful, doing my job, but then I got promoted and now I'm in charge of a team and I don't know if I'm motivating them. I don't know if they respect me. I feel a bit like a fraud or out of place. I don't know what levers to pull. I really want to have that confidence, that presence. That's what I teach people. So again, you can pick up the book, you can join my free Facebook group, and those are the things I teach. But also, again, I wrote this book specifically for leaders in the last 13 months. I came out with it a couple months ago because my companies were hybrid. So they were part in the office and part remote workers. And we won the #1 best place to work, even though 2/3 of our workers were outside of the office. And I know a lot of people are being forced to work in virtual capacities now and being forced to manage and lead teams that aren't all in the office when they're used to being in the office, and they're having to deal with a massive amount of change. And so that's really what I've been helping leaders with lately. And companies like Microsoft, Uber, Salesforce, they all bring me in to level up their leaders, as well as smaller companies as well. And I just wanted to tell all the leaders out there, so if you lead a company right now, or you lead a team right now, you're probably going through this. So you probably had to go from working from home because a lot of software testing can be done at home, and we're not the critical care workers and things to go back in. So you probably had to deal with you and your team being at home. What a lot of leaders are telling me is that their intuition is telling them that there's a problem with their staff. When I say a problem with their staff, that motivation is down, focus is down. We've been in lockdown. I live in the UK too, and we've been in this long lockdown, rainy, long winter. And mental health, I did a state of the workplace survey, my team and I, and there's a lot of people on the precipice of burnout. And chances are you as a leader are sensing that in your team. And so it's really important for you to be proactive. I mean, this is Mental Health Awareness Week, I think this week or next week. And so, that just brings it up that the mental health is in such a difficult place of everybody, that people are really on the precipice of burning out. And if one of your employees burns out, you failed them as a leader. Because when somebody burns out, what truly burns out, that takes weeks or months for them to get back. And look what that does to their confidence. Sometimes they never get that confidence back. Look what that does to their family. And so your job as a leader is really to create a safe and healthy workplace for people to do their job. That's truly what I believe, and to come at it with empathy. And so a lot of people know what that means, but they don't always know how to show up as an empathetic leader. And it's really about caring about the people, but also setting real clear boundaries about what's allowed and what's not allowed, but doing that from a real positive standpoint, again, which can be a real art of leadership. And, to me, leaders right now are under an immense amount of pressure, because whether you realize it or not, you as a leader are a role model. You're a role model to your team, of course, but also your peers, your friends, and your family. They know you're in a leadership position too. And they might not let on, but when you're going through crises, like we've been through in the last, how many months, 13, 14 months, they are looking to see how you react and respond. And it's up to leaders to really bring their A game during this time, because so many people are looking to see how you respond and you react to that. And so when you are, and what I tell managers and leaders right now is you have to spend more time managing. You have to spend more time leading right now. So if you spent, 10 hours a week before, pre-pandemic, connecting with your team, making sure everybody's okay, doing whatever, supporting them, you got to double that to 20 hours a week. I mean, you should be, if you're still in work from home, you should be connecting, you should be doing one-on-ones with everybody in your team, check-ins, probably at least every 2 weeks. And the thing is, a lot of leaders say, hey, I have an employee, let's say her name's Sally. I think something's not right with Sally, but I check in with her and she doesn't tell me what's going on, but my intuition tells me she is having issues mentally and emotionally, because I can tell by how she's showing up in meetings and Then, there's a real art to do that, and that's empathetic listening. And so as a leader, you really need to connect with your people, need you to connect with them more than ever as people on one-on-one, because we're telling people, we're making people adapt to so much change that we really have to give them extra support. And if there's one thing I could tell you to do, a couple things, is I say, the pandemic had 3 different phases. The first was like a street fight. When the pandemic first came about, for those couple weeks, companies were just trying to survive. They didn't know what was going to happen. They had to make sure they had the right cash flow. Then we went into like a sprint. So, okay, the company understands people working from home, and it's like, now we realize how we're going to have to pivot. We realize what this is going to look like. We put people on furlough if we needed to. And then we had this sprint. But the problem is people have been sprinting for sometimes up to over a year, and you're not meant to sprint for a long period of time. This is a marathon now. And so you as a leader, you really need to have a strategy for your team. And even if you're not sure what the strategy is going to be for the next 5 years or even a year, you need a 3, 5, 7 month strategy that's going to encapsulate, that's going to be communicated, that's going to set the right expectations for how are you going to lead and manage the team over these next couple of weeks and couple of months. Now that we're getting back, are you in a hybrid environment? How are you communicating? What's the communication state? How does that work? What are the teams going to look like? Because a lot of people are afraid. They're afraid that the company is going to go out of business, the industry is in a problem, that they're going to get fired. They don't know what's happening with the team. So it's really up to you as a leader. You need to step up and bring your best to make sure that people have what they need out of from you as the leader. And that's not always natural. That doesn't always become natural to people. In fact, if you're a newer leader, if you have 10 or less years in leadership, sometimes you often need coached or some structure to really be able to give that. For example, in the book, I give a whole flow chart of how to run a really empathetic one-on-one, a one-on-one meeting with your employees to really make sure you're hearing them, listening to them, and giving them the support that they need. Because, again, all the time you ask your employee, how are they doing? And all they do is they go, oh yeah, I'm great. Yeah, I'm good. But you know that they're not good. So you really need to get to that. Jonathan, how are we doing? Any questions? If you have any questions, pop them in the chat. Otherwise, I'm going to give a little bit of more tips and tricks that people need to be doing right now. How are we doing, Jonathan?
Yeah, you've got 9 minutes, so can continue. It's awesome.
Okay, good.
If you want to carry on, you go for it, Mike.
What's that, Paul?
Just carry on, yeah. If you want to go for it, but you've got half an hour, so you've got about 8-9 minutes. Yeah, go for it.
Okay, good. I'm going to tell all the leaders out there how they can identify mental health challenges in their team. And the biggest way to do this is you want to look for variations in their behavior. Now, what I mean by that is every little thing that they do is a clue. And so if somebody normally has been really on time with a lot of things, they're normally at their desk from 9 to 5. You can tell by when you get chats from them or when you get emails from them, and you don't normally get them off hours. All of a sudden, you get maybe an email from them at 10 p.m. and it's worded a little bit weird. Or normally they show up and their camera's on, but all of a sudden their camera's off. Or they're all of a sudden started to be late for meetings or miss deadlines. You want to look for variations in their behavior because those are the signs that they're having problems with mental health. You also want to look at their personal behavior. If they're a bit argumentative and they have never been argumentative before, if they're a bit negative, if they're a bit emotional, those are all clues. And again, one or two little clues doesn't mean they're having mental health issues. But if you put these together over a sustained period of time, then you realize that people might be having a real difficulty with what they're going through. And so if they are, then you really want to try to have a one-on-one with them where you really just listen. You get them talking a little bit and really dig in and maybe reflect some things back to them. Again, that's a bit of a longer conversation, but they really need you, and you really need to step up for them as the leader. So you really want to be on the lookout for variations of their behavior. Something else that I get asked a lot about are remote meetings. I mean, we're all on so many different remote meetings, Zoom meetings, Hangout meetings, Teams meetings, all these different things. And so, and again, congratulations all the attendees right now sticking in. I know this is the evening for the UK, so great job investing in your career and everything. But people ask me, how do I'm not getting good engagement on my virtual meetings. We run these all the time. So how do I get virtual engagement? Well, I tell people a couple different things. The first is, if you want engagement, how are you starting the meeting? Because people are going to mirror. If you want engagement here, if you want the energy level of a meeting here, your energy level has to be here or higher. Because so many people will start their meeting like, all right, is everybody ready? All right, in a minute or two, we're going to get started with our meeting. All right, I'm falling asleep already. It's up to you to really set the tone, right? You're the leader, so don't be afraid. Especially technology people, I really encourage them to embrace the leadership title. You're leading this. The people want to be led. They're here. They're waiting for you to get everybody ready and get on time. Start the meeting on time, get it ready, and you want to start with the energy that you want back. And so if you're starting a little bit low, if you're starting late, if you're a little bit, don't have an agenda, don't get right to the point, how can you expect everybody else to as well? So that's what I mean by leaders got to bring their A game around now. And so it's really up to you to set the tone for the meeting. Another good thing you want to do is you want to get everybody talking right off the bat. So if there's 5 people in this meeting, if we run this every week, the first thing I want to do is do a check-in with everybody. A real easy check-in you can do is to, hey, tell me something that went really well last week, and tell me one challenge that you're dealing with right now. That's a great check-in, excuse me, because everybody can share a win. Everybody likes to share something positive, because so often we focus on the negatives in management and leadership, and everybody gets to share a win. You get to know what they're doing, and then they talk about a challenge, and you as a manager and leader, you get to know what's challenged of them around there. But when it comes to being in a meeting, the quicker you can get everybody to verbally participate, the more they're going to be engaged throughout the whole meeting. Also, what you want to do in the meeting is you want to ask people questions. Don't be afraid to pick somebody. Hey, Jonathan, what do you think about this? Hey, Paul, what do you think about this? And have them do that, because when people know that their name might be called, then they are going to be more apt to pay attention through the whole thing. So there's a lot of little things that you can do to really bring up the engagement in your meeting. You can Google icebreakers. There's some fun icebreakers to do, but you also want to keep the meetings running quickly and get through them. To me, it's up to you to make sure that you get through the points, and you don't belabor some of the points that, if you have 5 or 10 people on a meeting, that only 2 people are engaged with. So to me, these are some of the normal meeting disciplines that we need to run. And, again, it's up to you for the leader to really set the tone for all these different things. And again, leadership, and if I could leave you with one thing, that leadership is not a natural skill. I was not a good leader when we started. I really worked on my leadership. Now I'm a really effective leader. I worked with a lot of business owners and other leaders in technology, and I see them make the change. So if you are struggling with leadership, if your team, you feel they don't respect you as that leader, if you figure that they can give more, but you don't know how to get that out of them, that is because then you need to invest in your leadership. And so, and Jonathan, Paul, make sure we got those 3 links out there. But you can buy the book. After you buy the book, you have an option to buy actually I have a high performing virtual team online course. You can buy it half off right after you buy the $8 book. The next link is the Facebook group. I have a free Facebook group that I do weekly trainings in, so you can get free content from me on your leadership mindset. We work on confidence, we work on overcoming imposter syndrome, we work on how to hold people accountable without being a jerk, how to really coach people, get the best out of people. And then is my LinkedIn profile. I'm happy to connect with everybody. It's always nice if you drop me a note. You can absolutely ask me any questions there. Again, I do weekly lives on LinkedIn as well, because being a leader, it's not easy, but to me, it's really fulfilling, because a lot of people get into leadership because they like making a difference and they were good at their job. And now we need to learn this whole other skill set in leadership. And we really need to bolster that, not just with skills, but with mindset changes. Because it is a lot of responsibility to take on a leadership role. You have a lot of people relying on you. You have people relying to feed their family. And in a way, that's a real honor, but in a way, that's a real stressor. And very, very few leaders that are in a leadership position have ever gotten the training or support they truly need. Like, think about yourself in this leadership position. Did your organization give you all the training and support that you need to really thrive as a leader? Did they tell you about how to get that confidence, how to get that presence? I work a lot on taking people from being tactical to being strategic. If you attend a board meeting, how do you connect strategically with the other board members? So it's not just getting you to the board, it's really having you thrive there. And to me, that's a mindset game. That's not just a learn this game. It's really learn new habits and have new mindsets. Cool. All right, everybody. Hey, thanks for this. Is that all, Jonathan and Paul? I think I'm in a panel in a little bit, but did that?